Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, Dr. Khalid Al-Anani, inspected the Dandara Temple in order to find out the latest progress in the restoration and development project of the temple on the sidelines of his visit to Qina Governorate to witness the opening of the Dandara Festival for music and singing held under the auspices of the Ministries of Tourism, Antiquities, also the Ministry of Culture in Dandara Temple. The minister said that during the visit that the temple is one of the most important and ancient Egyptian temples, which was initially established in the era of the 4th dynasty for the goddess Hathor, the goddess of love, giving and the motherhood to the ancient Egyptians. The temple is famous for also the astronomical scenes depicted on the ceiling, as well as the numerous scenes of kings and emperors making offerings to the gods. A very nice place worth the visit, and of course the event is meant to attract even more visitors to the temple. And in order to know more about it, we're very much delighted to have with us here in the studio Mr. Ihab Kamel, tourism expert and Egyptology researcher. A very good morning to you, Mr. Kamel.
Good morning.
Now, first of all, we would like you to talk to us about the activities of the Dandara Music and Singing Festival that was recently held in the temple, in Dandara Temple, and the objectives of the event.
Of course, any event that takes place in an ancient building or in a site, in a temple, it makes it something. It makes it graceful. It gives it a great atmosphere. Basically, choosing Dandara for a music festival, that's not something strange, because when you think Hathor, the goddess of the temple, was the goddess of maternity, love and joy and music. She was the goddess of music in ancient Egypt. So it's the right event in the right place. Having events like these, of course, it gives a very good positive image abroad about Egypt, about the situation, about the stability. Especially a music festival, a musical festival. This is something I always say, that music is an international language. You can speak to all the world through music, through art, because art and music are international languages which everybody will understand.
Yes.
So I believe that it had a very positive impact on the Egyptian image, speaking to the whole world, seeing a new site, let's say that Dandara. It is on the touristic map, but it does not get many visitors due to its location. It's near a village, actually, and the touristic infrastructure there, it's not like Luxor, which is only 60 kilometers away. But still, this temple is considered to be one of the treasures that the ancient Egyptians had left us. Yes. Having a festival like this over there, it shows the beauty, the gracefulness of this magnificent site, which I believe that will have, as I said, a very positive impact.
Yes. So perhaps the objective is also to bring more visitors to that temple, because as you mentioned, Mr. Kamel, it's one of the treasures that the ancient Egyptians left us. And due to its location, perhaps it's not getting the attention other temples are getting, like the Luxor Temple or Karnak Temple, for example.
Yeah, this is true, but I can't say that it's out of the touristic map. On the contrary, lots of people, they go visit Dandara, but usually it's combined with another temple further north, Abydos.
Yes.
As I said, they consider Dandara temple a temple that is more linked to Luxor. That's why you will find that due to its location, the location, it's on the edge of the village of Dandara, only 5 kilometers north, and behind there's the desert. So there's not really that much infrastructure, touristic infrastructure there. But most of the visitors, they come either from Luxor and usually they're visiting Abydos as well, or only Dendra. I believe that this idea can be also developed because Dendra has got a docking area for boats and cruises. We can do one-day trips by boats. We can do road trips from Luxor. It's only an hour drive. I believe that we need to expose more sites to the travelers, at least to release the pressure on the classical sites, because as you know, these are ancient buildings that needs less pressure, and we need to preserve them. So introducing other sites that will ease the pressure on the classic sites, and this will be for the welfare of the Egyptian, ancient Egyptian temples and
yes,
monuments.
definitely. In your opinion, how do you think that such events can actually enhance tourism in Egypt and contribute in bringing more tourists to the country?
Of course, they can add a lot to tourism in Egypt. Look at some countries. I'm not going to go far to Europe, but in the region around us, like Dubai, for example. Dubai is based on events and exhibitions. And the exhibitions, these are events. A country like Germany, for example, they make from exhibitions, tourism, they make more than 18 billion euros a year. So this is a kind of tourism which we need to have a breakthrough, have more events, have more exhibitions, especially that now we have good infrastructure for exhibitions and events. And I believe that this would be a great added value to the Egyptian tourism, and this will be maximizing the benefit out of the touristic product, especially that we already have a stable atmosphere. We have already a leadership that believes in the importance of this kind of tourism for so many reasons. So I believe we should also concentrate on this and on business tourism as well. All these are kinds of tourism. It's not only cultural tourism or leisure tourism. No, there are many other different kinds of tourism that we can attract if we want to reach the target that we need, because this having more travelers, this will train the people on seeing more travelers, more tourists. The people's behavior will start changing towards a better attitude towards the tourists, and this will a bit by bit change Egypt into a real touristic country.
Yes. In your opinion, how can we know more about the importance of Qina Governorate and its importance in the Egyptian history? If we're talking about attracting visitors to certain sites.
First of all, Qina, for a very long time, it was hosting Luxor. Luxor was not a separate governorate, so for a very long time, Qina was considered to be a capital for ancient Egyptian monuments, because it contained Luxor. This is as we call the gem of the crown. Qina, it's after the separation, after Luxor became a governorate on its own, I think the people or the travelers, they need to see the real life of the Egyptians. I'm sorry to say, but sometimes we put the travelers in touristic incubators. You know, we put them in Sharm el-Sheikh or Hurghada or Luxor or Aswan. But the people, they say, okay, we want to discover the country. We want to see the country and how is it like. In Cairo, with all these crowds, is not the finest example, but Qina is, and we tried it. We tried it with the Americans. We used to take them through Qina, and actually we used to take them to one of the cultural centers over there, and they used to see folkloric shows, and they used to go through the city and walk through the city, and you would be surprised how impressed they were with how clean and how organized and how and interacting with the people, and they loved the people over there because they say, we've never seen people who are so hospitable or so kind. This is very important, and we used to do this with lots of travelers, actually. As a matter of fact, I believe this is doable if we allow the travelers to spend at least one night. I'm not saying that we build hotels in Kenya or so. At least the cruise boats would dock for one night in Kenya, and we've tried it. Believe me, it's very amusing for the traveler. They used to love it.
What are the most important monuments hosted in Kenya?
Definitely Dendra and the surrounding necropolis, because Dendra, it's a very ancient site. Dendra, if you trace the history of the building, you will find that it's dating back to the time of King Cheops, 4th dynasty, and then Pepi I restored the temple. Then we have scenes or remains that dates back to the Middle Kingdom, 11th dynasty, and then 18th dynasty. And there are signs that shows that in the same site there was a big temple for Ramses II, and the blocks had been dismantled and reused in the Ptolemaic period. Also, it's the only temple that has a scene that shows Cleopatra VII and her son that she had with Julius Caesar, Caesarion. Behind, you have a huge cemetery that dates back to the Old Kingdom and the first intermediate period, and so many Roman monuments, because the temple was rebuilt in the Roman times. Beside, you will find that there are other cemeteries dating back to different historical periods around the region of the Kenya Governorate. There isn't one single Egyptian governorate that has not got an archaeological site. This is for a fact.
It's amazing, actually.
This is for a fact.
It's like they lived all over the country. The ancient Egyptians, actually, they were all over the country, and each part of the country is full of monuments, and it's like the earth keep revealing, you know, and telling us more, all the secrets.
Exactly, because we're living on the very same area our ancestors had lived. So look at the names of some towns. If you find the town that is named Kom something, you would know that it's built over an ancient site.
Why is that?
Because usually the ancient site or the ancient town is underneath or nearby, and due to historical periods and the floods and the storms, sandstorms and all this, it declined, ending up in the form of a pile.
Okay.
Okay. All you need to do is just dig into that pile, and you will find something from the ancient times. So you, like Komombo, that's simply because there is an ancient site, the ancient town of Ombus. So Kom, that reveals to the old site. Any town that has the name Kom something, that means that it's built over an ancient site. And there are so many of those. You have sites even at the Delta, which is rich with silt and all of that. You go to the Eastern Delta and you go in the rice fields, and you'll find big columns bases with the names of Ramses II, like in the village of Qantir al-Khatana. That was the capital of Ramses II, which is, so whenever...
Even in Siwa, I found archaeological sites in Siwa, which was extraordinary.
In Siwa, in Bahariya.
Siwa is a little bit
It's a very remote area.
It's very far away, and yet, yes, it has archaeological sites there.
Everywhere, even in Sinai, you will find ancient Egyptian monuments. In the eastern desert, very far away, with the very little water, all these gold mines that we're exploiting at the moment, the ancient Egyptians had exploited before us. And since the Middle Kingdom, I'm talking 2000 BC or 1900s BC, I'll tell you a very interesting story. When they started exploiting the Sukkari mountain,
Yes.
they discovered that the ancient Egyptian mining expeditions, they had worked over there and they had left us dump. Surprisingly, before they started exploiting the mine, they started exploiting the dump because the ancient Egyptians did not have the advanced technology
Tools, yes.
of machinery to turn this rock into powder. So when they had grinded it into powder, they had found gold in it still, that it could be exploited. Surprisingly, the technique we are using now in mining for gold,
Perhaps it's the same that
it's
they use.
exactly the same.
Same they use.
Exactly the same. The only difference is the machinery, but it's the same. They bring the rocks, they grind it, they put it in water, they keep steering, so the gold precipitates because it's metal, heavier. It precipitates down on the ground, and then they move it to a different level. The same way, we found the texts of the old miners, the old mining expedition, even the desert.
That's amazing indeed. That's amazing indeed. Well, Mr. Kamel, now going back to kind of, because you told me an interesting point about Cleopatra and the Roman era there. So, what part of Kana's history goes back to the Roman period?
Kana was very important in the Roman period because the Temple of Dendra was the temple that was famous for having a sanitarium. A sanitarium, thinking that the ancient Egyptians had thought about psychological and psychiatrical therapy at such an early age, that's an amazing idea. The sanitarium is still there. They used to treat the people with mental problems with something called the hot water treatment, which is, by the way, it was...
Like the hot springs in the desert?
Exactly, exactly. By the way, in Europe, they used to treat the people with psychiatrical problem with hot water until very recently, until the psychiatrical medicine had developed. So the ancient Egyptians were doing the same thing, and they used to have hollow pipes where they used to whisper to them through those, thinking that this might be able to help them to restore back their mental sanity. So imagine thousands of years ago, and those people were thinking about having a sanitarium, such kind of hospital over there. Also, as I said, this is the only temple that has a scene showing Cleopatra and her son, Ptolemy the 15th, Philopator, Caesarion. Caesarion was her son she had with Julius Caesar. And actually, we haven't seen that
in any other place.
in any other temple. And he was depicted as a pharaoh, as a king, with his name inside a cartouche, written inside it Kaisaros, Caesarion, or that's how it was pronounced in Latin, but in ancient Egyptian it's Kaisaros, and he's represented with his mother, Queen Cleopatra, presenting offerings to the goddess Hathor. The temple itself, it's huge. It's covering an area of 40,000 square meters. You will find also that it's one of the very few temples where we had found big additions added by Emperor Octavius Augustus, early Roman period, around 30 BC. And then Emperor Tiberius. Emperor Tiberius, that's the year 6 AD. We believe that also this temple was considered to be a holy site for many reasons. The first reason was that the goddess Hathor, the goddess of the temple, According to the ancient Egyptian mythology, she was married to the god Horus of Edfu.
Okay.
So we used to have a festival every year that took place in Edfu. The procession starts from there until it reaches the temple of Dendra, 130 kilometers further north, and the same procession, the same divine reunion festival was celebrated over there. So Dendra was very important. That's a place where a great festival is celebrated. The great god Horus is celebrating his divine reunion with his wife, the goddess Hathor. And of course they had a son, the god Ihi. So you had on the side, you had minor celebrations with the divine birth of their son. That's why you will find there are lots of buildings over there called the birth house or the Mamizi, dating back to different periods. The place where Isis had gave birth to her son, the god Horus the child. It's very important because the temple itself, as architecture, it's very symbolic. The ancient Egyptian had used the temples or the architecture to express his religious beliefs. Over there, we used to have a sacred lake, like the one in the Karnak. It's dry now, we have palm trees instead, but the place is still there, you can still see it. This is a symbol for the, as they call it, the water of chaos before the world was created. The temple itself, it's representing the primeval mound that came out of the water of chaos, and from there the world was created. They are showing that this temple is always the origin, is the symbol. That is why you will find that the Egyptians, they used the language of symbols, the language of architecture, the language of art in expressing their religious beliefs. One of the perfect examples that shows this is the Temple of Dendra.
Yes, definitely. Well, interesting. I'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Ihab Kamel, tourism expert and Egyptology researcher. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. And definitely a place worth the visit, and important events like the festival is just a step on the way on bringing more tourists to that beautiful place. Thank you very much.
Well.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this segment of The Breakfast Show. More is yet to come. Stay tuned.